Hello, Winthrop, and welcome back to episode 2 of All About the MBTA Communities Act, aka 3A. I am Vasili Mallios, and I'm here with my co-host,
Diana Viens.
And we have a special guest on the line, on the phone line today, Attorney Michael Walsh, who will be joining us throughout this broadcast. And he'll be giving us some insight as far as the lawsuits go and the law regarding the MBTA Communities Act.
Yep. Next slide, please. Go ahead. You can say your name.
Hi, guys. Mike Walsh. Pleasure.
Hello, Attorney Walsh.
Hello.
So what are we going to focus on in episode 2? So we're going to discuss what the law says and doesn't say, some key zoning differences between 3A and Winthrop. So what does our zoning look like compared to the MBTA Communities Act zoning? What's with all these apartments around us here in the North Shore and surrounding communities? Compliance, what is that terminology? A special note about Winthrop's Center Business District, also known as the CBD. And then what's going on in California, because I believe that they have also seen some housing reform similar to what we're seeing here in not just Winthrop, but the state of Massachusetts. And then lastly, our most favorite part of the show is our Myth Busted segment.
We love it.
So it's fantastic. So Diana, what does the law say?
Good question. So the law is, just as a reminder, 3 paragraphs. It is 3 paragraphs. It is not 10 pages of guidelines. It is not a 100-page economic bill. It is 3 paragraphs. This is what was passed into law. So we wanted to break it down for you to help everybody at home understand what this actually says and what it doesn't say. So what does it say? It says, the first, and this is the little tiny print on that you see here on the left, that's the law, and then we've broken it down into some explanations. That's where the arrows are going. So paragraph 1 of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3A says that the MBTA communities shall designate a 3A district that is suitable for families with children with a minimum gross density of 15 units per acre, located not more than 0.5 miles, so half a mile, from a commuter rail station, subway station, ferry terminal, or bus station, if applicable. That's important because if applicable was actually put there for towns like us that don't actually have stations. So it's ambiguous as to how far away this district actually has to be from any of those things right there. Paragraph 2 says that communities won't be eligible for 4 grants. I've listed them here if you don't have that district. And then here in paragraph 3, it talks about the agency in charge of writing guidelines to determine if your town is compliant.
So, Diana, a couple things that pop out to me. So this bill, these 3 paragraphs were put in a 100-page economic bill. I believe it was page 36 or 26, and it got passed unanimously, I believe, in 2021 under the Baker administration. As far as Winthrop goes, and from our research, because the town hasn't yet given us the grant money that's been associated with this, but we were able to find in the last 10 years that we had received 1 grant. And that was in 2017. That was either $2.3 million or $2.5 million for the infrastructure for the Center Business District. And at that time, we were very fortunate to have the Speaker of the House, DeLeo, in office, and he really went to bat for us here in Winthrop and really looked out for the best for our town. So, out of those 4, we've received 1.
Yep.
Okay, and that was the Housing Works, it was the Mass Works grant for $2.3 or $2.5 million, and that was just in 2017. Since then, we haven't received any funds from those 4 grants.
Yeah, and think about what we talked about last episode, which was the fact that a new school for all these children will cost about $120 million.
Right.
So obviously what we have to lose pales in comparison to what we have to lose if we comply.
Now, and I just want to point out also in paragraph 3 where it says, in consultation, so the Executive Office of Housing is going to be in consultation with the Executive Office of Economic Development, the MBTA, and the Mass DOT. So in my mind, if I had elected officials that may work for these companies or may work for the state here, you know, that's kind of, in my opinion, might be a conflict of interest, as they're going to be overseeing along with the Executive Office of Housing. So, you know, that's something we have to pay close attention to when it comes down to Winthrop's vote. You know, do we have conflicts of interest when it comes down to our town council voting here? So that's something to think about.
Absolutely, really good point. We don't. Nobody wants to make their boss angry, right?
Absolutely not.
Right. Okay, so that's what the law says. Okay, those 3 paragraphs. That's what the law says. Next slide, please.
So Diana, what doesn't the law say, right? Like, what are we missing here?
Exactly. Here's what the law doesn't say. The law doesn't give the EOHLC, the body overseeing the compliance of 3A, authority in zoning decisions. Okay, that's why they ask local governments to implement zoning. That's why they ask local governments to designate a 3A district, because they don't have the authority to do it themselves. It doesn't give the EOHLC or the Attorney General the authority to expand the law, whether it's through the additional grants or through suing people, okay? Guidelines are meant to explain the law, not expand the law. This is a very specific purpose that guidelines actually have in situations like this.
So Diana, as far as those 13 added grants, so the law, when it was first introduced, it was 4 grants that were affiliated with the original law. As time went on, last summer, I believe it was in August, the governor then added 13 more grants to the guidelines.
That's right.
Right? And in my opinion, it sounds like there was some pushback and towns weren't as committed to you know, moving on with the MBTA's Community Act. So the governor then, in my opinion, looks like a scare tactic here, or you know, making threats to grant money that in reality is our tax dollars.
Absolutely.
You know, those grants that we're becoming ineligible for, that's our tax money, and we shouldn't be threatened with our own dollars here.
1,000%. And I'll say too that with the additional 13 grants, the language was your non-compliance with 3A will be taken into consideration with respect to these discretionary grants.
That is true. It did say that. It was in consideration.
That's right. Here's also something that the law is missing. It doesn't say anything about affordable housing, okay? But the guidelines actually essentially wipe out Winthrop's ability to offer affordable housing by capping it at 10%, but actually making it so that 10% can't be low-income families, which we talked about last time.
So just to, let's just go back on that. So no more than 10% of the units within a 3A zone can be affordable, designated affordable, and in order to qualify for that 10% of housing, you cannot make no less than 80% of the area median income. So in Winthrop,
the opposite, you have to make 80% or more.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
You're telling me that I have to make 80% or more in order to qualify for this?
Exactly.
So okay, that's
wild.
That's really interesting, because in my opinion, if I was looking at affordable housing, I'd probably say, hey, it's got to be 80% or less.
Right.
So the law says you have to make 80% or more. So if I was a first-year Winthrop school teacher, I just came out of college at 22, 23 years old, and I just looked at the salary scale. I believe a Winthrop school teacher begins at around low $50,000 range a year. Do they qualify?
No, they do not, sadly.
So then year 2, do they qualify? Because they'll probably go up around 56.
No.
Probably not. Well, I can tell you when they'll qualify. If you are 5 years out of college at just your bachelor's degree, no credits, it would take you 5 years to get into 3A housing here to make over that 80% median income. So it would take 5 years as a brand new teacher here in Winthrop to get there. And I haven't looked at the police or fire, but I bet you they're around the same as well.
Yeah, you've got to make, in Winthrop, as of today, the 80% median income mark is $70,000.
Wow.
So you have to make $70,000 or more to qualify for the affordable units in a 3A
Wow.
apartment building. Of course, the law certainly doesn't say anything about dictating specific zones or the EOHLC's authority to dictate specific zones or give people quotas like 882 units that are assigned to Winthrop. The next slide, please.
Whoa, look at that, Diana. So Winthrop zoning versus 3A as of right. Let's look at the pros and cons, the differences between what we have today versus what is 3A going to look like. And on the next slide, we'll be able to see that comparison here.
Exactly. And these are just some highlights that we thought were important to share. And there are more. Obviously, taking away our citizens' right to participate is a big one for us. But let's just go through a couple of these. So can I build, here's the first question, can I build a 3A apartment building, which is something that won't fit into a normal neighborhood, in someone's neighborhood? So under 3A, absolutely, as of right, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You do not have to get permission from the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Planning Board to do this. The state allows as of right building of 3A apartment buildings in our neighborhoods once that district is down. In Winthrop, we have standards. We have a Zoning Board of Appeals and a Planning Board that make sure every time, and by the way, they approve a lot of these. That's why we have 70% multifamily homes here in Winthrop. They make sure that anything you're proposing does not derogate from the integrity or character of the neighborhood or surrounding uses. They make sure that it does not create undue traffic congestion or impair pedestrian safety, and they make sure that it doesn't pose a hazard to public health and safety. Next question, how many bedrooms can I fit into a single unit? In Winthrop, we say that a one-bedroom unit should be 700 square feet. That seems like a human-sized area to live in, right? We say that a two-bedroom has 900 square feet, and so on. 3A says that you are not allowed to require a minimum bedroom size, and you're not allowed to cap the maximum number of bedrooms in a unit. That's very significant, and it's very odd, especially from the EOHLC, which has no knowledge of zoning and no authority to implement zoning regulations.
But also add on top of that, there's no occupancy limit either,
Absolutely.
right? So no minimum bedroom size, no maximum number of bedrooms, but guess what? No occupancy limit either, right?
Regardless of the number of bedrooms, exactly right. And the last one here, allowable affordability requirement. We've heard this from folks in town that we do need more affordable housing here potentially. And today Winthrop can require as much affordable housing as we need to. And I encourage everyone to get involved and go to planning board meetings and zoning board of appeals and write to their counselors and say, hey, we need that. Under 3A, as we just discussed, that's significantly limited, in fact, completely wiped out, which is very unfortunate because under 40B, we are required to keep an inventory of 20% or more of affordable housing. And under 40B, affordable housing is defined as an opposite to 3A. So under 40B, only people making below the average median income in the area median income, qualify for 40B apartments.
Now, 40B can be located among the entire
Anywhere.
town, right? It's not in a designated
Right.
zone, right? So you can spread that out. We're not just looking at the Shirley Street area for like 3A, and it's only going there, and it can't go anywhere else, right? 40B, we could disperse it amongst different areas of town, right?
Exactly. That's a really good point because it does give us the leeway and the ability to dictate what makes sense for Winthrop by picking those specific spots.
Right. So if we had a redevelopment in a smaller part of town and we could take advantage of that opportunity, right? We could say, oh, we're going to call that 40B. We'll follow the 80% or less. and we have that option, right, where 3A is like, nope, it has to go in this area.
Exactly. And because of 3A's bulk style of units and bedrooms and people, we actually are risking being non-compliant with 40B, which comes with a whole host of other problems. But do we even, Vasili, need other units, affordable or otherwise? I mean, they say there's a housing crisis. I think arguably there may be an affordability crisis, but what's going on with this, crazy idea?
So Diana, the state is coming.
Next slide,
The state's coming and saying they need 220,000 units built, and I believe it by 2030 is what I was reading. And so I've just been legit going on Google Maps and driving virtually through these streets around Winthrop, and I have been finding a bunch of completed projects and development that's coming soon around our area. And if we go to the next slide here, you're going to see that Revere Beach alone, okay, we have had over, I believe it's like 1,600 units that have been built in the last couple of years. We have another 357 units being built at the end of Revere Beach. We have Bennington Street has some developments that are coming as well. There's a lot of development coming. The one that sticks out the most for us as residents of Winthrop is Suffolk Downs. Suffolk Downs is saying 10,000 units to come.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and it's going to be a variety of housing options there. I've seen townhomes and apartments, but 10,000 more units right next door to us. I mean, you can imagine what the traffic's going to look like. Along that, and that's not what's not shared here, and I've been finding more research as I keep going down the highways, virtual highways. Saugus, Route 1, they're developing. I've calculated probably about 1,000 units that are coming down the line. Chelsea and Everett, Route 16, Revere Beach Parkway, they are developing as well. There's actually 100 acres. The Exxon Mobil right across the street from Encore, that's 100 acres that was just sold, and that's going to be future development as well. And just to put in perspective, okay, I believe Suffolk Downs is 161 acres. Exxon is 100, and Assembly Row, I believe, was around the 45-acre mark. So, the sky's the limit at that Exxon development, that area there, and we don't know yet what the residential piece is going to be, but we're seeing development all around in the last couple of years, and there's a lot of projects. I would suggest people get on their planning board websites or their town planning websites, and they start looking up and seeing what projects are actually coming down the line here, because these units actually don't count towards 3A, right? I mean, that's a little surprising. So we have development going on, but that doesn't count towards those 3A units,
Very
right?
strange.
So we have development, and then let's add more with 3A. So, towns and cities need to look into this more, because before you know it, this density, it's going to be a lot.
Right, and it makes you wonder, what is this all for, right? If
would-
we're already building and we've got more coming, then what is the insertion of the no occupancy 3A buildings for, whatever?
I don't know. I have a feeling as we continue through our investigation and more towns start to do their homework and research, we're going to find more out as far as, what the Executive Office of Housing, maybe they're linked to something else that we're not aware of yet. There might be other things that are behind the scenes that we don't know. And I feel like these communities that are waking up and doing their homework prior to voting are finding things that are more surprising than not.
I mean, fun fact, the EOHLC is responsible for housing the newly entries to our community and to our country, the unhoused, and it's the exact same agency. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they utilize their new powers.
Something to look at.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's jump to the next slide here about this is all about compliance. I think that there's a lot of questions that people have about when they hear these things about people are rejecting and people are complying. What does that really mean? So we thought we'd take a minute and just run through that with you all. In compliance versus complied versus rejected 3A. In compliance, you'll see on the next slide, but don't change it yet. There's lots of people, lots of towns that are in compliance, and that's because they have a person in a role who received an email, business as usual, from the state saying you need to fill this stuff out, it's due by this date. The Attorney General likes to go around talking about how many towns are in compliance or most towns are in compliance, but this was never raised as a red flag by these individuals, and nor did they have any reason to think it was, and we trust our government. They got an email, it was an online form, they made it by the deadline. This by no means was a vote that was circulated, that was announced to decision makers. Unfortunately, it was just sort of a business as usual thing, but certainly nothing to brag about. Voted down 3A. There are 10 communities that have voted down 3A. The significance of this is, I cannot stress this enough, is something like we've never seen, or at least not in my lifetime. And we'll get to that in a minute, but there are towns that have complied, and for the communities that did address this, they were worried about grants, and they were told they were going to lose money, and the information about this very sort of complex issue maybe hadn't gotten there yet, or I've been watching a lot of town meetings the last couple of weeks because this is the springtime, their spring meetings, and a lot of what I'm seeing is that the threat of losing grant money and the threat of a lawsuit is pushing communities in the direction to comply. I also feel like they're being rushed. Information is coming out daily. Communities have hired consultants who are one-sided in this, okay? Those consultants are going to push you in the direction to comply. And they're going to find you the best plan possible for what your community is looking for, right? And so you're not really, in my opinion, hearing both sides of the story when those presentations are made. The other part is what we're hearing is that people don't even know what they're really voting for because they're being told, oh, it's just zoning. Right.
Okay? I don't want to hear that anymore. It's not about zoning because the governor has said we need to build. Our elected officials have said we need to build.
Definitely.
Okay, 220,000 units by 2030 is what they're projecting. They're going to build.
Right.
And these communities need to be aware of what they're voting in and what the impact is going to be.
Right.
Now, every community has a right to say, yes, we want to comply, and no, we don't want to comply. If the community says, yes, hey, we want MBTA 3A zoning, we think this is great for our town, fantastic, go right ahead. Take on that change of zoning. But if there are communities that come out and say, hey, this doesn't work for us because of X, Y, and Z, we shouldn't be threatened with not being eligible for grants or a potential lawsuit from the Attorney General, right?
That's right.
Where are our rights here?
Right.
As residents of a community that we know the best.
Right.
Okay, we're getting stripped those rights. The other piece to this is that there's 177 communities, and I believe Attorney Walsh is going to jump on this. There's 177 communities that are taking on the housing crisis for the state. And they keep saying, oh, you got to do your part, right? We got to do our part. Well, then why aren't all of the towns and cities in the state of Massachusetts doing their part?
Right.
Why is it only a select 177? Why is it only MBTA communities? Why is it that the Cape isn't involved in this? Why is it that Western Mass isn't involved in this? Why is there a little blurb in the top left corner of the map you're going to see not involved in this? And why is the city of Boston exempt from this?
Yep. Extremely good
If there's a
point.
housing crisis in Massachusetts, then the entire state needs to do their part.
If
not
it's an emergency.
177 selected communities.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. If this is truly a crisis, then it is an all hands on deck situation, not here and there type of compliance, willy-nilly
Right, and
decisions.
if these 10 communities are saying no, then that's all right. It's perfectly fine.
Right.
Because other communities should be incentivized here and say, oh, we'll take on some more. And you know what? The state should say, all right, we're going to reward you for that.
Right.
Thank you for doing your part. We're going to reward you. We understand that Winthrop is a very small community, 1.6 miles, 12,000 people per square mile
On
here.
par with the density of
Right.
Boston.
Already, yeah, we're doing our part. We keep being told, we should be good. We've been doing our part. We're ahead of the
Absolutely.
times here.
Absolutely.
But now we're expecting 882 units to
Yeah.
zone for.
Right, and before I get to the paper compliance piece, to your point, who doesn't have to worry about this? It's the city of Boston, but who's in the city of Boston?
Our senator,
Our senator,
yep,
Lydia Edwards, and so is Andrea Campbell,
the Attorney General.
the Attorney General, who, by the way, shares the exact same historic trolley that Milton does.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So awkward, right across the line. Hopefully, they don't take the train together because that would be
So
unfortunate.
Diana, one thing that we're hearing here a lot in town is paper compliance.
Yes.
Can you expand off
Yes,
of that?
absolutely. So I would argue that most of the towns that are complying are taking the path of least resistance. I don't think anyone is actually on board with signing their rights away, to your point. But what they have done in a protest in its own right is put the zoning around existing apartment buildings. This is important. So paper compliance means you've complied on paper. Okay, it means that you're compliant because you designated a zone, but your zone in effect doesn't allow building or won't end up in more development. And the reason for that is because you've made it in such a way that it's not profitable for developers by putting around existing apartment buildings. It's very specific. A developer is not going to make money making new apartment buildings, building up the land if the land is already very high
Yep.
and has a lot of people living on it already. Okay, it's not putting the zone around single-family homes
Right.
or duplexes or, God forbid, open space land that can be developed. That is just compliance, because anytime you do that, a developer can easily make money by knocking down or enhancing what's there, or in the situation of undeveloped land, having at it.
And to talk about single-family homes just a little quickly, the MAPC's, the Metropolitan Area Planning Committee or Council,
Yeah, council.
had mentioned that multi-family unit developments are more efficient. You get more buildings if you can have a couple of stories rather than having a single-family home on an acre lot. That's not a very efficient use of land. So we have organizations that are telling us that, oh, your single-family home isn't good enough. We want to knock that down, and we're going to put an apartment-style multifamily there. Multifamily meaning 3+ units, right? In our area of single-family homes here. So we have to be a little bit aware of where this is all coming from.
Right, your house is an inefficient use of that land, and as a result, we're going to open it up to developers who want to build there. The guidelines will change. Last bit on compliance, they will change. If you have to continue to comply to maintain your compliance, else be punished by being sued or having your grants stripped away.
So where are we today? Here's our
Yeah.
3A. Here's our 3A tracker. If you see the reds are those 10 communities that have defeated the proposals that were put in front of them, either within the spring town meeting in the last couple of weeks, or as Milton did last year. Actually, it was earlier February, excuse me, of this
Yep.
year. Holden still hasn't yet submitted an
Yes.
action plan.
Yep. They say
so
it doesn't apply to us.
Doesn't apply to us. We're
good.
going to continue business as
Yep.
normal. And then if you see there's communities that are green, and it says adopted. So adopted does not mean that they are going to start building right away, or they're going to start implementing the zoning right away. What happens is that the towns were presented a plan, the town meeting members or whatever, the elected officials, they decided to vote in favor of that plan. It now needs to go in front of the Executive Office of Housing, correct? and they need to give the final stamp on the plan. So
Right.
they're not actually 100% compliant, right? They're pending compliance. I forget what the actual term is. But so we still need to wait on these green areas because it may get kicked back to them saying,
Yeah.
hey, your plan's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Michael, sorry.
It happened in Rockport.
It happened in Rockport. And we should talk about that, about the 2/3 threshold, because we'll be discussing that with the community outside later today.
Absolutely. Let's
But before we move away from this is, can we put that map back up for a minute? I want to take just a second to talk about how significant this map is. Okay, this is not an election map. You're not seeing, two candidates going at it. This is a situation where people are batting down, you could say, an equivalent of a new tax, just like they did back in 1766 with the Stamp Act, essentially. We have different state mandates and taxes and rules that are passed every day as a matter of course. Nobody bats an eyelash. People love to complain later, but nobody really does anything about them. What you're seeing here is something that I don't know if any of us will ever seen or will ever see again in our lifetime. 10 towns have rejected 3A. As Vasili said, Holden is saying, we're not participating. This doesn't apply to us. So you could arguably say 11, and they're not in red here. But
You can arguably say 14 because 3 other town meetings voted to send it back to their planning board because they didn't like the
that's true,
good
Attorney
point.
Walsh. That's very true. That was Wilmington, Shrewsbury, right? Did they push it to the fall?
Yep.
And then there was 2 others, I believe.
It might have been Hopkinton or I forget whether it was Hanson or Hanover, but yes.
Probably.
Alone.
yeah, and I think Hanson and Hopkinton actually voted it down. But really good point. So there's probably more like 14. But please understand that each one of these towns has hundreds and thousands of people living there that overwhelmingly came out and sat in oftentimes 3-day-long meetings. That is how significant this rubs people the wrong way. Okay, this is not a straightforward issue. It is not a partisan issue. It is an issue that requires explanation and time to read through things and talk to people about. This isn't something that would just immediately rub someone the wrong way. It is something that takes time to understand and learn about, which I'm so happy that you're tuning in at home because this is a major piece of the puzzle and it's how we protect our town from a very damaging thing like this. And as soon as people realize what is happening, they show up and they vote it down. So these little red blurbs, these little red blocks here, are representative of a significant effort like we have never seen, or I have never seen in my lifetime. Vasili, have you ever protested
Never.
anything in your life?
Never.
Because I haven't, okay? And we're here today, we're doing a TV show for y'all, and we're also actually going to a No on 3A rally.
So
later
just really
today.
quick, the 4 communities that have deferred to their spring vote to a later date in the fall are Hanover, Wilmington, Burlington, and Shrewsbury. So we're up to about 14 that have not committed to a plan yet.
So on that note, Vasili, what do you have to say to people at home and just our community about just
You got
speaking up?
you got to speak up. You need to voice your opinion. Sitting at home and saying this is terrible is not going to make a change. You need to reach out to your precinct counselor. You need to make your opinion known. Speak to your neighbors. Talk to them. Get them going, right? Right to our representatives. We need our Senator Edwards and Representative Turco to fight for Winthrop up on the Hill, and they need to go to the governor and say, hey, we need to do something better here. This is not working for certain towns. This one-size-fits-all mandate is not the best option. We got to relook at this, put a pause on it, let's take a look, and it comes from first off, local. It starts local and it works its way up.
Right.
But we need people at home to reach out, get involved. It's okay. You can agree and disagree. You can say hello to those same people out in the community. We're not here to battle each other, right? We're here to share our opinion and do what's best. Majority or the minority, right? Whoever wins will be the majority side, right? But, you know, we care a lot about our town, and we love the way our neighborhoods are in our town.
Right.
And we know what is best for our town. So it's important that you get out there and you voice your opinion.
Absolutely. We're here because we care about this town, and we care about all of you. We care about our families and wanting to make a life here and continue our families' lives here.
100%.
Which brings me to the next point, a very special note and shout out to the CBD. We have this here because we have heard the rumblings that the town council or the planning board have plans to incorporate the CBD into a 3A zone. Let me tell you that this would be absolutely catastrophic for Winthrop, and that is why we're calling this out here today. Okay, the CBD isn't perfect. We didn't love the pave over. We didn't love the fact that they took our Christmas tree, but we're like the Who's in Whoville, right? We show up for Christmas anyways, and Santa Claus comes down with the Girl Scouts. It's very sweet, and we were working on it. Okay, it is ours to work on. We have zoned it in such a way that we're going to help figure out what it should look like, what businesses should be down there. That's your right as a person living here, as a citizen of this town who has a family here and who loves this community, to get involved and to voice what you would like there. That's always been the situation. That's always been the vision. And what we do there will set the vision for the whole town. Now, here's the problem with the idea that we would put a 3A district, a 3A overlay around the CBD, which not even Utile, our initial consultant, was foolish enough to suggest, okay? First of all, 3A punishes mixed use. So that means, despite the fact that the center business district is meant to have businesses in it, if we then choose to have businesses in our center business district, we only get to count 25% of the units that we put above those businesses. So if we have a ground floor retail or a restaurant, then anything above it, say we have 100, only 25 of those count. And they're all zoned the same way, so jam-packed with the bedrooms, right? Lots and lots of people. So 100 times, 4 or 5 people each. We then have to replicate that building 4 times in order to qualify for 100 of the 882 units. Or we expand the scope and put the district over single-family homes, which is very detrimental to those neighborhoods.
So you're looking at Somerset, Bartlett Road, you're looking at all those side streets that lead into the CBD. Wow.
Right. Not only that, but from then on, we get to go and ask the state, is it okay if we do this there?
Right.
That's not our plan. That's not our vision. It is the CBD is the future of this town. It has to remain walkable. It has to reflect our vision. We're going to be having sessions on what that's meant to look like for the people. So no on the CBD. Keep in mind also that 3A doesn't allow you to have minimum parking requirements. And of course, we all know no limits on unit size, number of bedrooms, bedroom size, or number of occupants. And the residential units are permitted, must be suitable for families with children. So basically 4 or 5
Can't give
people
up our center business district to the state. So
exactly.
Where are we at currently with legal battles? So the one that is most known is the lawsuit that the Attorney General filed against Milton. Milton is fighting back and challenging the constitutionality. It's supported by amicus briefs.
Maybe Attorney Walsh can talk about it.
Yeah, Attorney Walsh, if you want to speak about Milton quickly.
Sure. So the state Supreme Court a week ago today issued a briefing order. The Attorney General needs to have their brief in by June the 3rd, and the opponents are allowed to have their brief in by August the 19th, with an idea then the Attorney General has, I think, a week and a half for a reply brief, and then we're off to the races for an October argument. The SJC meets in the first week. I think they're hearing it on the 6th, but don't quote me on that. Other than that, Milton is there are a number of amicus that are looking at this. This case has drawn a lot of attention. It actually drew a lot of amicus briefs, and usually at the single justice level, it drew several pro-housing amicus briefs. I don't know if the justices have asked for amicus briefs. I don't know if anyone's going to write any on the full bench, but I'm sure it'll be interesting. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, Attorney Walsh, really quick. So these towns that are saying no to complying, right? That are the 10 towns that have said no. Should they be filing amicus briefs to help support Milton's case?
Yes, ideally.
Okay, so we need to make sure that these communities now know the next step is, hey, you're saying no, we don't like these plans. We need to now reach out and support Milton and get an amicus brief out there based off of our town. And who would they have to contact regarding that, I guess, is my question.
You need to have an attorney, but the briefs can be filed by any member of the public. Generally speaking, you're going to have a brief. It can be up to, I think, 25 pages worth of argument, plus there are a bunch of odds and ends you're going to have.
Okay.
You file it with the clerk of the State Supreme Court, which is located at the John Adams Courthouse in Boston.
Fantastic. And then where are we at with the Rockport local suit and the Rockport federal suit?
So the Rockport local suit was filed in 2022 after Rockport adopted a TOVID, which was supposed to be a complying district. Apparently it didn't work, and so they went to town meeting about 3 weeks ago to pass another MBTA district. This one should comply, and there's a federal lawsuit that we filed against that as well. The local lawsuit argues that it is unconstitutional under state law, and we've received a bunch of citizen committees from approximately 17 or so towns that are looking to join us, representing better part of 300 people, actually more than 300 people, looking to protest this law. We're trying to see if we can convert it into a class action, and I just got in hand, I think yesterday, the Attorney General's opposition to our motion to certify a class.
Is Winthrop one of those communities that has joined?
Yes, I have a committee from Winthrop that has sought to oppose it.
Fantastic.
Other than that, we were initially going to be heard today in oral argument on motion to dismiss. That has been postponed 2 weeks to the 28th by Judge Buxton. Part of it was a court conflict with me, and part of it was a court conflict with a civil bench trial that has kept the court a little busy. But we'll definitely be in and be heard before June the 1st, so that should be fascinating. And in the Rockport federal suit, we're arguing that the new district is actually it's arbitrary and capricious because to comply with the MBTA zoning law, it's drawing a district that is supposed to be affordable, but it isn't. And so we're arguing that because it doesn't make any logical sense, that it isn't really doing what it's supposed to do, that therefore the impact on local neighbors is outrageous and hopefully unconstitutional. We'll see what the federal court thinks about that. They have 60 days to respond to us from, I think, last week.
Awesome. So actually on our next slide here, Attorney Walsh, SB 9, this was California's counterpart to 3A, and they were looking to abolish single-family home only zoning. They wanted to split into 2 lots, resulting in 4 homes. They had 5 towns look to sue, right? And it seems like the Supreme Court for California said that the law does not ensure access to affordable housing, and they
shot it down.
Shot it down,
yep.
Right? So, this is great for us because this is exactly what we're fighting on as far as these suits go.
Yep.
Exactly such. They teach it in common law and law school that when you have an aim that you want to go to, like affordable housing, whatever method you took has to at least somehow connect to it. You can't just require people to draw arbitrary things or have arbitrary requirements if it doesn't at least advance or connect to the aim. And that's essentially what the California court held, was that, creating more units, more lots doesn't have a sufficient connection. It's not tailored to your aim of affordable housing, and that's very true with this 3A law as well. That's why we think it's vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Awesome. It's great to know. Attorney Walsh, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add quickly? so we don't have to keep you any longer.
No worries. Other than that, I was only going to say that your estimation of the state's units under this is actually a little low. According to Commonwealth Magazine last year, they anticipate trying to get 289,000 units out of this.
Wow.
And of course, as you already know, it's not connected to affordability anymore. So other than that, thank you both very much.
Thank you so
Attorney Wallace.
much.
Good luck. Keep us posted.
Good luck. And I think we're covered.
We're good.
289.
All right, so we're
yes.
at our best part, myth busted.
Myth busted.
We have 2 myths that we are looking to bust here.
Yes.
Myth number 1, big demand for 3A apartments.
Everybody
Diana,
wants them.
talk to, do people really want all these 3A apartments?
Oh, yeah. No, they don't. Actually, 89% of home buyers prefer single-family homes. This trend is actually moving away. There is a trend moving away from actually building single-family homes, but the thing that people buy, even with that, is overwhelmingly single-family homes. And in fact, millennials, who make up the largest share of home buyers, and they mostly want single-family homes in the suburbs, actually, according to a 2022 National Association of Realtors report. So millennials, 74% of them say they want single-family detached homes.
Wow.
While 76% would like an open or partially open living or dining room area or dining area, and the median desired square footage for those is 1,900 square feet. So millennials don't want to raise their families in apartment buildings. They make up the largest portion of home buyers today, and they want to live in houses. Next slide, please. This is just a graph that shows the types of homes purchased. Obviously, those green bars represent single-family homes. In 2023, only 61.8% of new construction was actually allocated to single-family homes, but 89% of home buyers would still prefer a single-family home. So my question is, even though we're building less of them, it appears that people still would prefer single-family homes over apartments. Why do we continue to pile people on top of each other? It hurts us, it hurts them, they don't want it.
Especially here in Winthrop, 36% of our housing stock is single-family homes. We don't have enough single-family homes.
We don't have enough single-family homes.
Demand is high and our supply is very low as far as single-family homes go.
Right.
And last, I just read something the other day. Bill Ricca's plan is looking to zone 112 acres of single-family homes. Okay, for 3A multifamily housing. So can we say big demand for 3A apartments?
Busted. It's
busted.
Myth busted. That's totally busted. Not true. No, people prefer single-family homes.
Awesome.
most
And
of
our
the time.
second myth number 2, paper compliance is a safe bet.
Oh yeah, no problem. You're fine.
Well, talk to me here, Diana. What do we got? What's going on in, where's this?
Cambridge.
Cambridge. What's going on in Cambridge?
So the state will work with anything you give them. This is an apartment building, like we talked about before, paper compliance, path of least resistance, right? But here, this is not a 3A apartment, but this is the spirit of 3A. Here, what the developer did was take this building, which was 16 bedrooms, 16 units, they cut it up, and they fit in 50 bedrooms in the same space.
So let's take a look at the next slide. You'll see what it looks like. So you went from
take a look.
16 bedrooms to 50 bedrooms with the same physical space, right?
Right.
Wow.
Every bedroom has its own bathroom, as you see here. And the bedrooms themselves, think about it, no minimum bedroom size,
right?
Are 10 by 8 by 10 bedrooms.
Wow. But going from 16 to 50 bedrooms.
No minimum bedroom
No
size.
minimum bedroom size. Can we say that paper compliance is a safe bet? Is it?
It is not as busted.
It's myth busted.
This is a busted myth. I'm sorry, Brooklyn. I'm sorry, many other towns who put their zones over existing buildings. And I'm sorry to the folks who spend all that money on condos, because ultimately, any developer at this point, because it supersedes state law and it supersedes condo association law, certainly can come in and buy anything in there. And despite what the condo association has dictated, they can cut cut
Wow.
it up and put as many bedrooms as they want to.
Diana, this, more information continues to come out. We're going to continue to keep sharing with our community. This episode was a little bit longer. We had a lot more to share here, but most importantly, right, you need to start contacting your local officials, letters to the editor, speak up at public comment. Winthrop, you need your voices to be loud and clear. Winthrop says no to 3A. Visit us on our Facebook page. We have been putting it out there and attending meetings left and right, and we're showing that we care for our community.
Yeah, and that's why we're all here, is that we love Winthrop, and we know that you do too. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Winthrop.